Hello friends, welcome to Grow in Chess channel and episode 5 of Steinitz Zukertort match 1886. After 4 games, Zukertort is now leading with 3 games to 1. Steinitz just won the first game and then lost 3 in a row. But if you see the first 4 games, Steinitz was getting really good positions out of the opening. And the last 2 games, Steinitz just blundered and lost. So Zukertort wanted to change this outcome, and this game, in the next 5th game, Zukertort came really well prepared, but also changing the line which he implemented in the game 1 and 3. So without wasting any further of your time, let us quickly get started and see how was this next game played in the match. Zukertort started with queen pawn as he did in the game 1 and 3. So what exactly did he change? Let's see. Black went for the Slav defense. This is the starting position of the Slav defense as we have discussed in the game 1. If you have not checked the game 1, I'll put the link in the description below. Please do check them. All the games are really instructive. After c6, knight c3, knight f6, e3, bishop f5. Here, until this point, the game is similar to the game number 1 and 3. But here Zukertort decided to change from his earlier plan of going c5, a3, b4, giving up the central pressure and launching an attack on the queen side. He decided to play c into d5 here. C into d5, queen b3. Now if you see, the structure in this game is completely different from the structure which he used to get in the games 1 and 3. After queen b3 is attacking b7. Now black has very limited choice to defend this pawn. If black plays queen c7 or c8 to defend b7, then his d5 pawn is hanging. So let's say if he plays queen c8, knight into d5, knight into d5, queen into d5, and white has won a pawn. Here he cannot play bishop e6 trying to pin because there is this knight f6 with a check. Cannot capture the queen, he has to take, and white can simply save his queen and be a pawn up. So another option is queen c7, which falls to the same idea. Knight into d5 is still hanging. And one more option that black has is to play queen d7. If queen d7, white will play knight f3. Now white's idea is to go to e5 and trouble this queen because it's protecting 2 important points. If black plays knight c6 here, still white will go knight e5. Now what is the idea? If he decides to move the queen here or here, one of these 2 pawns are going to fall. And if he says, okay, I can take your knight so that my queen is not under any pressure anymore, white will take d into e5, attacking this knight and forcing this knight to step away from defending this pawn on d5. And if he comes here trying to attack this pawn in return of this d5 pawn, white has something different in his mind. Can you find it? You can pause the video and try it for yourself. White will play bishop b5, pinning the queen and getting a simply winning position. Okay, so black here decided to go back with bishop c8. Okay, you can also ask a question, why not black simply plays b6 to save this pawn? The idea here is if he decides to play b6, whole light squares on the queen side are going to get weakened. In future, he will have to play e6 to develop this bishop, and this bishop will be stuck away from these weaknesses on the queen side. That is why black doesn't prefer going b6, and he decides it is better to step back with the bishop to defend b7 without committing any weaknesses. So black decided to go bishop c8. Now white started to develop naturally after bishop c8 was played. Black has already lost 1 tempo coming forward and then going back to c8. White played knight f3. Black came out with the knight controlling the center. After knight c6, white went for knight to e5, jumping in the active central square. Now what is the idea? Why is white inviting black to take knight into e5 and ruin white's pawn structure with a doubled pawn? The idea is if he takes knight into e5, d into e5 again will force this knight to move away from defending the d5 pawn. If he goes to g4, idea is to attack this point. Then white can first play bishop b5, forcing bishop d7. Now queen into d5. I'm defending this pawn. I'm defending the bishop. Black is simply a pawn down and lacking in development as well. So after knight to e5, jumping in the center, black played e6, defending this pawn, but the bishop is stuck inside now. And white has got definitely much more activity for his pieces. Okay, after e6, white went on to b5 to pin this knight to the king. Queen c7, he had to defend this knight. For example, let's say he plays bishop d6, attacking this knight. White will play knight into knight c6, b into c6. Bishop will capture this with a double attack on the rook and the king. This is winning. So after bishop b5, black went for queen c7, bishop to d2. Now, okay, this bishop has got not many prospects in the king side, but if you look at the pawn chain, currently the pawn chain for white is directing towards the queen side. So in general positions, there is an exception sometimes, but in general positions, with the pawn chain directing to one side, you should always try to create more play on that side. That means the queen side. Also, white's pieces, most of his pieces are on the queen side, creating a lot of pressure on this side. Now after bishop d2, black went for bishop d6. Here comes a very instructive move that you should understand. Although white has all his pieces on the queen side, white is committing himself by playing f4 on the king side. Is he weakening too much? I don't think so. Why? Because black's pieces, if you look at them, most of them are stuck behind this pawn chain and they cannot really come to the king side to attack. So what I said earlier was white should try to create something on the queen side. That was because white's pieces are on the queen side. But there is one more important aspect in the position. Black's pieces are also mostly on the queen side. So white can also create something on the king side, which he did with this f4 move. Now let's say castles was played, trying to get the king to safety. Rook c1. Here black decided to chop this knight off and exchange it for this bishop, because if he takes with the knight, it's not possible. If he takes with the knight, then he's going to simply lose it because of this fork, double attack. So here rook c1, he has to, if he wants to take, he has to take with the bishop, which he did. He did not like this active knight on e5. F into e5. Why not d into e5? Why do you want to take with the f pawn? Can you guess? It's a positional decision. If you take with the d pawn, it's still good for white. I would not say that black gets any advantage after this move. It's still good for white. But f into e5 is much better than that. The reason is after d into e5, white is not gaining more space. If you play f into e5, after castles, your rook is going to be extremely powerful. After this rook is opened on the f file, you can get your pieces slowly on the king side and build a very strong attack on the h7, f7 and g7 pawns, which is highly instructive. We'll see what happened in the game. Black had to save this knight, which went to e8. Now on e8, it's very passive. Why did he go to e8? Can he go to d7 or e4? If he goes to e4, I don't like this move because white will simply take knight into e4, and after d into e4, who's going to save this pawn in future? I mean, I can just play queen c2 as well here, attacking this pawn. Black will have to play f5, but then e into f6, rook into f6, queen into e4, and white has won this e4 pawn. And this is a very good position with a bishop pair also. Let's go back. Let's see some other move. Can the knight go to g4? Well, I don't like it because I can play h3. This is one option. If the knight goes back to h6, I'll just come, let's say bishop d3, or first I'll castle and then go bishop d3. This knight has got no prospects. Even if he comes to f5, let's say now knight f5, white goes bishop d3, and the pressure on this knight is too much. pawn is also doing a job of defending this pawn on d5. So he has to move the knight and go to e7, which is again not a great idea. He has lost 4 important moves just to get rid of his attacked knight. Instead of that, he decided to go to a safer point. Now another safer point is also d7. If he goes to d7, the knight has got lesser prospects. From e8, it has got lesser prospects for activity, but it has some prospects for defense. That is the reason he chose knight e8 over d7. White played castles. Now black played f6. Now already looking at this position, I feel that Zukertort has completely dominated black right from the opening. This has changed the outcome. Like, he wanted to change the strategy, he wanted to change the positions that he was getting from the opening. He was not happy with them, and I think he successfully did that. He got a really good position out of the opening, and he did not miss a chance to hit and extend his lead. After f6, played bishop back to d3. Now, as I said earlier, after you open the f file, you can slowly use your pieces to build on the king side. There are a lot of plans which you can choose from to get his pieces onto the king side, but he chose the most precise ideas. Like after rook f7, queen c2. Now, we have seen this idea in our previous videos that you need to provoke weaknesses. If you are attacking, you need to provoke your opponent to make more pawn moves so that they will weaken his position on the side where you're creating counterplay. Now we are creating counterplay on the king side. On the king side, white wants black to make more pawn moves which would create more erosions and more weaknesses. So now with queen c2, white is attacking h7. He needs to defend with either of 3 moves, 3 pawn moves. This pawn move, this, or a pawn move with the h pawn. If he plays h6, absolutely vulnerable light squares on the king side. If he plays g6, the f6 and whole lot of dark squares will be weakened. Now let me tell you one very interesting idea. You have a bishop pair here. Which bishop is your extra bishop? I would say the dark squared bishop, because he also has the light squared bishop, this counterpart. So the dark square bishop, if this comes into the attack on the dark squares, if the dark squares on the king side are weakened, black has got nothing to do against them, has got nothing to defend them. So he decided to play f5. He doesn't want to weaken his dark squares. Can you find the next plan played by Zukertort? Highly instructive. He wants to get all his pieces to the king side, but the path that he is choosing is really good. Knight came to e2. What is the point behind this move? Knight on c3 was not doing much, and although it was not a very bad piece, I want that knight on the king side to help build the attack on the king side. So knight is coming to e2. From there it is going to jump to f4 if needed. e6 is also a long-term target because both these pawns have been pushed, and the weakness on e6 has also been fixed with this e5 pawn. After knight e2, black decided to complete his development by playing bishop d7. Another important idea, rook f2. This is a very long-term move. I don't think that white is going to play rook f1, rook c to f1 immediately, but he's making provisions for the move. Like in the right moment, the rook on c1 can jump to the king side and create good attacking prospects on the king side. Okay, rook c8 is trying to create something on the queen side over the c file, but these bishops are so powerful that they are controlling all the penetrating squares for black. White went for bishop c3, another prophylactic move. What Zukertort says with this move is, I don't want to give you any counterplay on this file at all. And with this move, white has solved his problem of the c file once and for all. What it means is, it is going to blockade these major pieces, and now white can happily and very freely get all his pieces on the king side, because this bishop is not going to allow these pieces to enter on the c file. Black played queen b6. Queen is starting its journey towards the king side because white wants to mate black's king. After queen d2, knight e7, rook transferred to the king side. So if we see, slowly all the pieces are going towards the king side. After rook fc1, black offered a trade of the bishops. He wants to exchange this bad bishop. If you see, black's pawns in the center are locked on the light square, so this bishop has got very less prospects. Okay, the bishop can be powerful on this diagonal, but I don't think that black can create anything out of it. White says that you can take this diagonal. I am happy with my bishop stepping back to b1. There's nothing that you're going to get over this diagonal. I need my bishop to attack on the king side. After bishop b1, black played queen a6, creating more pressure over this diagonal, creating a battery on this f1 a6 diagonal. Okay, white went for a brilliant dynamic move in this position. Can you find it? It's interesting. Probably not the best. Maybe white could have played a prophylactic move like rook e1 before going for such an active idea. But the move which was played in the game is also highly instructive, giving a lot of conceptual ideas in this position. White played g4. What kind of attack is this? I have explained this in our earlier explanations. This move is kind of a flank attack. Now, what are flanks? These are called as the flanks. This is the queen side flank. This is the king side flank. Flank as in sides of the chessboard towards the edge. So if you play a pawn move towards the edge of the board to create some counterplay, that is considered to be a flank attack. And remember one more thing. If you are trying to create any flank attack, they will be successful only if the center is closed. If your opponent can open up the center after you have weakened the flanks, then the attacks will not be successful. Here the center is absolutely closed. So white went for g4 freely. Black wants to play g6, keeping this diagonal still closed. He doesn't want this bishop to get opened up and create more counterplay on this diagonal. h3, rook coming to the 7th rank. He wants to defend his 2nd rank and also anchor this rook on f7. Rook e1 was played. This was the move which I was talking about earlier before g4. Could have been played then and can also be played now. It's a prophylactic move just to free this knight from the spin. Okay, knight came to g7 for the aid of these king side squares. Now this knight has been freed from the spin. So the knight jumps to f4. Knight stepped back to c8. He can try to come somewhere on the queen side. At the same time, he's also opening up the 2nd rank for this rook, connecting the rooks and probably fighting for the f file. White played g into f5, opening up the position. Open up the position on the side where you are stronger always. On the king side, white is stronger. So white wants to take the pawns and open up the position. After g into f5, rook g2. Okay, here can he play e into f5? This pawn is hanging. White can simply take this pawn on d5 and white is easily winning with these two connected passed pawns and these two absolutely powerful bishops. Okay, so he decided to take with the g pawn correctly. White went to the g file now. After g into f5 exchanges, this was the newly opened line. So white is trying to control on the g file. Probably he is going to double up on the g file and pressurize the g7 and g8 critical spots. After rook g2, king stepped away from the pin, doesn't want to stay on that opened up g file. Now the next plan found by Zukertort is absolutely instructive. A very good positional understanding demonstration. King to h2. What is the idea? He wants to vacate this g1 square for the e1 rook so that he can double up on the g file and pressurize on this newly opened file. Queen came to c6, trying to rush back to the king side, but I think it's already way too late for black to defend. Rook came to g1, knight e7, queen f2, taking this last and important piece to the king side. Queen came back to e8. Can you find the final blow that Zukertort used and forced Steinitz to resign? If you have found this, rook into g7, brilliant. Rook into g7 was played. What's the idea? If rook into g7, rook into g7, king into g7, knight captures the pawn, and another rook on c7 is hanging. So what are the material odds? If the king goes back, let's say to h8, knight into c7, white has 3 minor pieces against just 2. White has gained an extra pawn on e6, and he has already gained an extra piece on g7 where he sacrificed the rook for. So what do you understand from this whole game? Zukertort, first of all, changed a lot of things in the opening, completely changed the idea that he was playing against Steinitz. And once he got the desired position here, after f into e5, one big error that Steinitz did was bishop into e5. I feel probably he should have continued developing on the queen side with a6, bishop d7, maybe b5 if needed. He can get the rooks here, not allowing white to get access to the f file. Still, white should be better, definitely better, if not clearly better, but bishop into e5 easily gives up a lot of advantage to white. After bishop into e5, f into e5, once the center was closed, and remember this kind of pawn on e5 playing with the white pieces is absolutely terrible for black. It controls the f6 square. This knight has to step away so that this king feels a very lonely piece on the king side, because his e5 pawn is also just fixing this whole pawn chain. If you move any pawn out of this, it is going to create a lot of weakness, like it did in the game with the f6 move. So after this structure was achieved, it was very simple task for a strong player like Zukertort to get all his pieces to the king side while making sure that black doesn't get any counterplay on the queen side. This move, if you remember, the bishop c3, blocking off the c file once and for all. So this was the game where Zukertort purely dominated Steinitz and went on to lead the match with 4 wins to 1. If you have found this video instructive, definitely think about liking the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, I will put a link of the whole playlist of this first World Championship match between Steinitz and Zukertort in the description. Kindly check them. They are highly instructive. See you in the next episode with more instructive content and with the next game in this match. Thanks a lot for watching.